I'm assuming at this point that you're mainly a self-taught person in photography, or did you learn from somebody?
So I don't think the correct term would be self-taught.
Okay.
I would say I'm not professionally taught, but
Okay.
because a lot of my learnings have come from others.
Okay.
So people who have been generous to put on YouTube tutorials, work on YouTube tutorials, do blog posts on different aspects of food photography. So I read up a lot on it. I saw a lot of tutorials, and those helped me quite a bit
Okay.
to learn. Yeah.
So now that you've learned the basics and you've got a hang of shooting food really well enough to get attention from magazines and other blogs, how did you? I mean, this is the biggest challenge any photographer who's starting off has, which is knowing when your photos are actually good enough, and how do you improve your photography? Were there other people who helped you, critique and then keep improving?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I started photography with just basic, with no thought on how a photograph should be composed or how the lighting should be. This was when I started my blog in 2010, and when it started, like the recipes started getting appreciated was around 2011, but the photographs were still really bad. In 2011, Instagram wasn't as big as what it is right now, and it wasn't a big
Yeah.
traffic uh, traffic booster for your website. But there were these two blog aggregators, like food aggregator websites that worked in. They would select images and they would put them, like if your image was selected on their website, on their page, they drove a lot of traffic to your website. So I started submitting my photographs to them.
Okay.
And these were these really bad initial photographs that I would send.
Okay.
And they would always reject it with a feedback. Like Food Corker did that. I don't think Taste Spotting did it, but Food Corker would reject the photograph with a feedback. And they would use terms like low exposure or incorrect white balance or composition too tight. So these were terms I had no idea about. So whenever they would send those comments, I would start reading about it.
Okay.
And I would figure out what is exposure, how can you change, like what are the things, control, how do you control it, and how do you work with it with natural light.
Okay.
And then when an image would get approved and get selected, then I would start analyzing what made that image work. So once I would analyze, like, okay, this is probably why it worked, and I would use those same techniques in my next set of images.
Okay.
Depending on whether I learned the correct thing, they would either get approved, accepted or rejected. And slowly, I started getting a hang of what made a good imagery, what all constituted things. And also, I was reading a lot about it and practicing a lot.
Sure.
And changed from shooting auto to manual, shooting JPEG to RAW.
Okay.
So all those things, this was all while I was in the US. So all those things kind of helped me to improve my photography.
You just said that you don't want to call this self-taught, but this is exactly what a teacher or what some sort of a mentor would do is to analyze it for you and then give you that information. But you did it yourself. I think that's pretty much comes under the category of self-taught for the most part. I mean, you get information from elsewhere.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, I would say 90% of it is you taking the information and applying it. Yeah.
You need to have the drive to learn.
Yeah.
You need to have that interest in learning. That only comes from within.
Okay.
But yes, I think a lot of help was thanks to the people who shared their information. So I didn't have to go to a school.